Hey guys, Tim and Dave here from the Single Malt Review with another absolute cracker from once, turning into one of our most deadliest distilleries, and they have upped the ante in such a way that Dave has not been able to resist. They've pressed the red button, or rather the purple button. They've flicked the port switch. What have they done, Dave?
Well, this is Kilkerran port cask matured 8-year-old. This is 100% port matured Campbellton whiskey from Kilkerran, bottled at full cask strength, a blistering 57.9% ABV. Now, I recently had a birthday, and that is one of the very few occasions when I'll actually buy a full bottle of whiskey. You think someone who's been reviewing whiskey on the internet for 7 years would go through a lot, but I really don't. I maybe buy 1 or 2 full-size bottles per year. The rest, it's occasionally little mini samples as you see on the show. So this was, though, my treat for this year. And it sold out so fast, I was lucky enough to get the very last bottle in the store at Whisky, our friendly neighbourhood whiskey heroes.
Yeah, this one is flat out gone, or rather flat out gone and immediately reappeared out back on the grey market. So good luck if you want a bottle. We'll just be rubbing it in at this stage. But yeah, sad we didn't get more of this one. But that said, this is, port cask matured. Those are 3 words you do not often hear.
No.
Port cask finished, fine, dime a dozen, whatever. Port cask matured, that's a very rare thing. At 8 years as well, that's hot dang.
Yeah.
That's not too common, and it is absolute, that is just the catnip for Dave, as we've discovered after many long years.
And look at that, there's no colouring, no filtration. Look at that, is like an amber ale colour, and that is... After only 8 years, that's how rich and expressive these casks are.
And you can see the port as well. You look at the rose tint on that one. It's not hiding anything. So whether this was a tawny or a more of a big vat for ruby port, we don't know where the wood came from. I think they probably would have said tawny if it was tawny. Where's the middle? There it is. So I think there's probably casks recouped out of what would have been a real big old, like almost food-esque ruby port barrel, where the ruby port sort of just rests for a little while, but it does it again and again and again and again. So you pick up just as much, or possibly even more port influence than you would from a tawny barrel, which is much smaller and holds just one charge of port for a very long time.
There's reasonably scant information on this one. Well, it was bottled early 2022, and it is batch number 7. Aside from that, not many details. No. Just at ABV, of course, 57.9. So it is a belter.
Oh boy, this is...
There's rich orange, lashings of port and brandy and rum on the nose. This is one of a few times I've had a spirit where the aroma and the palate includes other spirits. But it's not...
For me, I think I can see where you're coming from the rum.
Yeah.
For me, it's Amontillado sherry. There's a walnut in here. A spicy walnut, and it's absolutely beguiling and inviting. I like it a lot. There is if I go to here is good. If I get the schnoz all the way in, then I suddenly get too close to the lava of what is the cask strength here? It's 57.9%. I haven't given it a shake yet. What do we got? Frothy.
Yeah.
That cask strength will hit nostrils once you get too close, but other than that, it's pretty moderate. It's pretty gentle on the old olfactories.
Well, it's not gentle on though, is the palate. I'm going to go straight in at full strength because I'm just crazy like that.
That ain't bad at all.
Angostura bitters come through a little.
What is that? There's the sherry again. There's Oloroso Amontillado sherry with that incredible walnut note and lots and lots of oak. The thing with port casks is they're usually made from such ancient oak, because the port houses over there in the Douro in Portugal, they reuse them for just years and years. So that wood is normally really pretty tired. A lot of the time when you get these finishes, you don't get much more than the colour. And sort of the like strawberry chocolatey notes from the actual port that's been soaked into the wood. We're getting a lot of the actual oak. Well, we're getting 100% of the actual oak. I still have to pinch myself to remind that this is matured. This is not finished. This is not. There's no affectations here. This has been
We've had a few 100% port matured whiskies before. One of those was a 4-year-old Kilkerran. So it's like
I think we see them on average. You might see one a year.
Yeah.
You know, they are a pretty atypical event, but always a bit of a celebration. And the fact that we can, like this one was presumably affordable, given I didn't see a for sale sign outside your house. This was.
It was honestly bargain price. This was on par with your average 12-year-old single malt. So almost at the same price as, say, a Glendronach 12. Yeah. It was remarkably cheap. That's why it's now turned up for resale. I've seen that some websites selling it for 175 euros per bottle, whereas I paid 105 New Zealand dollars for this, which is maybe 50 or 60 euros.
What a steal. Kilkerran, we do not deserve Kilkerran. Kilkerran is too good for this world. And I know the day must come where someone's doing the books and realizes, oh, this is what we're selling, our multi-award-winning whiskey. We gave Kilkerran Whiskey of the Year just last year. It's and I stand by that 100%. People say Kilkerran's overhyped, but I don't think it is. I think it's underhyped, if anything, especially by the price. The price is the last like card to fall. And it's going to be such a shame once that happens. Once someone realizes, like, oh crap, we haven't. This isn't. We could be selling this for 200% more money than we are. It's going to be a dreadful shame. But until that happens, we're going to make some hay on this stuff.
Add some water and see what happens. Yeah, so this whiskey, I've tried this once before when I opened it on the day of their celebrations, as they were. And I know this one can take a little water, transforms, add a little more, and you got a whole different whiskey again. It's one of those many whiskies in one glass deals.
Well, now, what's your take on the peat? Because Kilkerran is much like Springbank, their core offering contains quite a high proportion of peat compared to most distilleries' output, but they can also do heavily peated offerings. I think this is...
well, there may be some there, but it's certainly playing second fiddle to the port cask.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the criticisms I've seen leveled against this in other reviews is that it's so intensely port influenced that you can't taste for Kilkerran. It loses all the unique distillery character, which is...
Oh, boo-hoo.
Yeah.
There's plenty of perfectly good 12-year-old Kilkerran with no port involved, if you really wanted that. This is a celebration of port, and I think anyone that buys this by mistake has, A, gotten astonishingly lucky, and B, is presumably blind. Because you wouldn't seek out something like this unless you knew what you were getting and you wanted it. I actually think my read on the peat here is that there's actually quite a bit.
Okay.
I think this is somewhere between their heavily peated offering, which was our Whiskey of the Year last year, and their standard one, which is, I wouldn't want to hazard the ppms, but it is still just like Springbank is a fairly peated whiskey. Kilkerran in its normal form, its native format, is a fairly peated whiskey itself, and this is I think there's fairly more peat than in the standard one, to my nose anyway.
Right. The adding water just unveils layers in this whiskey and just keeps sampling it, sipping it more. It just keeps giving. Apparently, there comes a tipping point where you add a little extra water and it just kills it. It goes flat. Yeah. But I've never encountered that myself. I've always just hit a sweet spot and just really enjoyed it.
Well, I put in quite a lot now, and if anything, it's really got the port going even more than before. I was wondering why it wasn't there, but my tell for port, it's usually finishes, but I mean it works for maturations too, is chocolate, milk chocolate. You might think it would be something more porty, because you don't really pick up chocolate as a tasting note in port, even Old Tawny port. It's really just different shades of fruit. But for some reason, chuck whiskey in a barrel that has had port, and there's your chocolate, almost like quite serendipitously. Real chocolate notes, and with a bit of water, there they are all of a sudden.
There's also a remarkable amount of actual port flavour. Usually a whiskey won't taste exactly of the thing that occupied its barrel previously. You can tell bourbon cask influence and sherry cask lends a certain flavour to the whiskey, but it doesn't give you a whiskey that tastes like bourbon or like sherry. This, however, you can taste the port. You really can. Yeah,
there's a lot of there's sort of a strawberry compote fondant, if you will, depending on your favourite brand of chocolate.
When I first sampled this, it was over quite a long period of time, adding little water, and add a little more, and so on. I took some fairly extensive notes at the time, so I'm going to run through those now, just to give a full indication of just all flavours I got out of this.
Let's go.
I got rum, rum-soaked raisins, plum wine, port, a kind of concentrated port extract or port flavour, orange oil, aromatic bitters, think Angostura bitters, and then intense spice, and also that strong spirit heat, because it is only 8 years old after all.
Yeah, that Angostura bitters, that's a good one. Because that's sort of a coming together of a lot of sweet spices at once with quite a strong, I don't know, kind of a red backbone. Angostura bitters, I mean, if you're drinking Angostura bitters by themselves or diluted with water, something's gone very strange anyway, and you're probably going to start hallucinating because there's some bad stuff in there. You should not drink Angostura bitters straight. Quite beside the fact that it probably tastes awful. But yeah, there is a real red spice to this. You know what? I've been, because I wanted to, because I'm a mad scientist here. I've been incrementally adding water to try and find the gulf that you mentioned.
It's actually gone cloudy.
Yep, and I found it.
Right.
I found it just as it really goes actually scummy and opaque.
Right.
Mine has now
tipped over into.
I think mine has now tipped off.
Oh no, into the unenjoyable.
No,
and not.
It's not unenjoyable, but it's not. It's no longer at its best, but it's now almost more water than whiskey.
But at very nearly 58%, you can add a lot of water to this and still have a generous amount of whiskey in your glass.
Right. So scores on this one. Doing this, it's going to require a bit of restraint because Dave's the one for the port matured whiskey. I'm not quite as susceptible. You show Dave sees a port matured whiskey over the road, and it's like the cartoon dog with the jaw falling over and the eyes that go ooh, yeah. He's just scoping babes whenever he sees a port matured whiskey. I'm that's just me with any whiskey, so I can't talk. But I don't have the intrinsic vulnerability to it, so I'll speak as the voice of moderation on this one. And this is bananas freaking good. That's my voice of moderation. This is another flabbergastingly great whiskey from Kilkerran.
And for Scotch whiskey, it's so young too. 8 is a very low age statement for Scotch.
Yeah, it's a daring one for sure. It's about I think 8 is the marketing team's minimum of what you're allowed to get away with, because I have never seen anything lower than 8.
Goodness knows what would happen with this cask if a whiskey was left in it longer. It could just go catastrophically wrong quite quickly.
I think they bottled this at the right time, honestly. I think this would be interesting to see it 10 or 12 years, but given how very, very porty it is after 8, I think it might have become a little bit too porty. At 12, there's moderation in all things. But anyway, I'll stop talking around it. This is a 94-point whiskey. This is really, really, really good. It seems slightly absurd to be talking about Whiskey of the Year contenders after just giving Whiskey of the Year, last year giving Whiskey of the Year to another Kilkerran, another cask strength Kilkerran. But them's the breaks, I suppose. Them's the damn breaks. So yeah, I was hoping for this as well, because we had we did have a previous contender which looked unassailable. It was right up there. It's the Longmorn.
Yeah.
So now we've got a fight. We've got a fight on our hands now, and I'm very pleased with that. So we will see there. So what's your take on this one?
This one is a staggering expression. Now this is going to be, like any review, highly subjective, because anyone tries to be an objective critic of something dependent on taste, that's simply not going to happen.
They are presumably an Excel spreadsheet at that point.
I am an unabashed fan of strong cask influences, novel casks, port in particular. So if you're looking for something which is quintessentially Kilkerran, which really captures that Campbellton style, you're not going to get it from this. The cask is so strong and so single-minded and forthright that it obscures nearly anything else whiskey might have to offer. So if you want a well-rounded Scotch whisky experience, you won't get it here. What we'll get, though, is a bombastic symphony of port cask maturation in a relatively young whisky at an amazing price and at a staggering cask strength. And this is, for me, a comfortable, 93.0. This is, I believe, the only other 93 I've given this year. Oh, that's probably comparable to the Starwood Ginger Beer cask, which I think we reviewed back in January,
right,
which I also really enjoyed because of another strong, bombastic
That one
cask
slightly
explosion.
Slightly more divisive, that one, but yeah, cask explosion, that's how I describe that whiskey. But yeah.
If you can find it anywhere, go for it. There is also a 8-year-old cask strength sherry cask expression, which I have not tried, and I can't speak for one way or the other, but I'm sure it's good.
It had a hard time not being the tear that Kilkerran has been on, but yeah. So that. I mean, I'd like to say I was pleasantly surprised, but this was always going to be really, really good. This is better than I thought. I think I'm so used to tasting, because Kilkerran is probably the other people that will give you port matured. You know, once in a blue moon. That's probably been years and years and years since I did that. But and the peat is so strong on those whiskies. I don't know why sole port maturation keeps ending up in Islay whiskies, but it seems to. And you really have to fight to get into that. Where exactly does the port truly begin? Because the peat's always so strong on those Kilkerran ones, but not here. Not here, because Kilkerran not is going to blast you with peat quite so hard, and we've really got to see, as you say, a symphony of what a port cask can bring. So. Wonderful stuff, again, from Kilkerran. Like I say, we do not deserve these people distilling over there. They are doing such a good job, and there is no reasonable reality in which the prices stay as low as they are. It's sad, but true.
Yeah. Happy birthday to me, indeed. I was lucky to grab the last bottle locally of this fella. If you do find it, and you find it at its original retail price, do yourself a favour and grab some. Drink it, keep it, whatever you like.
Get that whiskey. For sure. All right. Well, we've gone long on this one, but I think this one deserved a bit of time on there. So yeah, Sludger, we will be right back.